Okay, so we are in the middle of page 152, the beginning of the chapter 22 on the virtue of humility in the Mesilas Yesharim. That's in this book, the Feldheim edition. So we kind of left a bit of a cliffhanger last week, not last week, 2 weeks ago, that he ends the second paragraph of the people who are people. Let's just read the whole paragraph. So if you pay attention, Nymsa, we'll find the humility is dependent upon thinking and action, your mindset and your action. Adam, Anav, Bakshata. You have to first be an Anav in your thinking. And after this, now it's important to appreciate, we tend to think that humility is like one of many different characteristics that you might have. Humility and generous and sensitive and other various things, but clearly humility is an overarching concept that applies the basis of your mindset in everything you do in life. It's not just a temporary thing.
I'll go in the room so I can hear the lecture.
Put you on mute here. It's not just a temporary thing to just apply at a particular moment. When they ask you to speak in front of the United Nations, and did say something like, who am I to speak in front of the United Nations, kind of thing, right? That's not humility. That's not the humility we're talking about here. We're talking about an overarching concept of how you view life. So he says that first you have to have the mindset, and then you have the action. Because if you do it the other way around, if you try and act like a humble person, then all you'll be is, it's not possible. You're not possible to achieve. All you'll be is an Anav, pretend Anav. You'll be pretend Anav, and Anav b'mudumim. You'll be phony, right? It just appears. And that is the worst. That's a terrible thing. And we talked about this above. Now, where do we talk about this above? That's an interesting question. Does he say here? Right. So you could say he fits it into where arrogance, but I think what he's talking about is where he talks about the Shem Shemayim, which we'll get to in a second. Let's just finish the paragraph. Shehem מכלל הצבועים, and these are in the category of the hypocrites. Asher ein ba'olam ra mehem. There's nothing worse than that. That's the pits. So we left off last time we met. How come this is the pits? Worse than avodah zorah, worse than murder, worse than all the other things that you could possibly mention. How come this is the worst? That's the question we left off. So I did a little research, and it's really based on the Gemara in Sota, or it seems that way. And the Gemara in Sota is talking about a Sota. If you want to look it up, it's a Mishnah. It comes from a Mishnah in Sota. Let me just find the Mishnah. Oh, I had it right here. Now I've lost it. Sorry. Where is it? Mishnah. No, it's not that. Not that Mishnah. Oh, come on. I just had it. Mishnah. Here you go. Mishnah. It's on chapter 20, page 20, Chaf Amud Aleph, page 20, the Aleph, side of Aleph, the first side. And it's talking about a sota who's going up to the temple to drink. She's been accused of being a sota, and she goes all the way. And then after they, and they're talking about different times where she changes her mind. Before they erase the scroll, and after they erase the scroll. And the Mishnah concludes with the different people that destroy the world. And it says a chassid shota, a chassid who's an idiot, a fool, stupid, right? And a different devious, evil person, right? And then it talks about, and it says makos prushim, and the prushim, the ones who want to be righteous, like they pretend to be righteous, and they do all kinds of ridiculous, over-the-top things to prove how righteous they are. The Gemara gives an example of somebody who to save himself from looking by accident on an immodest woman or somebody who's not supposed to look at, he covers his eyes and he keeps banging into walls. I hate when that happens, right? And he bleeds, and he's like, he's a mess, right? And he's trying to show everybody what big tzaddik he is because of all the bruises he has, right? Trying to save himself, right? So he says these kind of people destroy the world, and the Gemara goes into all kinds of questions, and it concludes with a very famous story of King Yanai. King Yanai was a really bad guy, and he killed lots of chachamim, lots of the sages. And it was the time of the Prushim and the Sadukim. The Prushim were, let us just say, the good guys for simplicity's sake, and the Sadukim were pretty much the bad guys, right? The Prushim are the people who followed the Torah Sheba'al Peh, and the Sadukim were the people against that. And he went with the Sadukim, and he sided with them. And so when he was, I saw this somewhere, I forget where I saw it, but there's an old joke about they come to Stalin and they say, where are you? They come and tell him that the Jews have prophesied the day you're going to die, right? So they said, when is it? When is it? He says, it's on the Jewish holiday. So he says, which one? Passover? He says, no. Rosh Hashanah? He says, no. Sukkot? No. Well, which one? So they said, any day you die will be a Jewish holiday. Right? So that joke was originally told by Yanai, King Yanai, right? Because he knew that when he died, everyone's going to be happy, right? So what did he do? Right? He imprisoned a lot of the chachamim. I forget the number. It was a lot. I forget the number. And there was a significant number. Well, into it was a lot. So and he gave orders that on his death they will kill them all. So why? So that that day won't be a happy day. Right?
Wait, was his wife Shlom Tzion?
His wife, I think you're right.
He's the one that saved them, right?
The one who saved them, right. Shlom Tzion.
Because this is starting to sound familiar to me.
Right. Right, Shlom Tzion, very good. Right, there's a street in Jerusalem named after her. Right. So she was the sister of Shimon ben Shetach. And so what did she do? He died, and she delayed the announcement of his death. And then she went to the prison and pretended that he gave orders to release the sages, and she saved their lives. But on his deathbed, he was no fool. So she was worried that he's going to die, and now it's payback. And the Chachamim are going to pay them back, and she's going to be in trouble. And he says to her, don't worry, because and she had a son who she wanted to be king. So she said, don't worry, that and he gives this bank, they won't pay you, they won't do that. Because he knew who the Prussian were. It's fascinating. Even though he knew who the Prussian were, he sided with the Sadukim. So he says like this. He says like this. Oh, where was it now? Sorry. So he says to her, don't be afraid. Now this is on page 22, the second page base. So he says to her, Amallah Ayanai Malka. King Yanai says to her, to his wife, Al Titre, don't be afraid, Mina Prushim. Don't worry about the Hachamim, right? V'lo Mamisha and the Prushim, and not from the people who are not Prushim, i.e. the Sadukim, who are my friends. Don't worry about either of those. Don't worry about the Prushim, because they're Sadikim, and they'll do the right thing, which is not to pay you back, right? That's not you. I'm the one who's did the wrong, and they're going to get me, but now I'm dead, they're not going to worry about it. And they're not going to punish you because you had nothing to do with them, right? And don't worry about the Sadukim. Right, who should you worry about? Ela min tzvuyim, but from the hypocrites. Tzvuyim literally means the colored ones. Right? In other words, they wear colored garments, pretending that they're clean. They're it's like you wear fancy garments to pretend that you're really important. Right? There's a halacha like this, that if you have an old pot, you're not allowed to paint it to make it look like it's a new pot to sell it at a higher price. You don't cover up an innate problem to pretend that it's something else. So don't cover something up. So worry about the hypocrites, Shadomim Leprushim, that they pretend to be Prushim. That's the thing that everyone wants to be. The Sadiqim, the righteous, that's really who, no one's trying to pretend to be reform or conservative, right? They're trying to be righteous. They want to pretend that they're righteous. Everyone agrees. That it's very interesting. My daughter was in seminary, and the girl she was friendly with, her father was a conservative, I don't know if he's still alive, was a conservative rabbi. So, and she went to a seminary, she became frum. So she went to seminary. So I said to my daughter, why don't you invite her parents for dinner? Right? So they came over for Shabbos, and they're sitting there talking to a small crowd. So I said to him, just between us rabbis, what is your biggest problem as a conservative rabbi? What's the scoop? Right? His answer shocked me. He said, oh, Yechiel. Hey, how you feeling? You're mute.
Sorry, we were muted.
A little bit better. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. So I asked him, so who's the who do you what's your biggest problem? He said to me a shocking answer. He said Chabad. I said, Chabad? It's a conservative show. What does Chabad have to do with a conservative show? Right? So I said, why did you say Chabad? He said, because whenever there's an argument in the show, should we have whatever it happens to be, kashrut, whatever, right? There's always somebody who says, well, in Chabad, this is what they do. So he knows, right? He knows that everybody knows that's the way you should be. Right? Nobody's going around saying, the reformer not going with a conservative rabbi, right? They all know this is, right? I ever tell you the story about the rabbi who wanted a discovery? Do you ever tell the story? Right?
Not
Stop me if
sure.
you put the story. So we one time had one of our members was asked to be the head of education in a conservative shul, big conservative shul, like really big. and I think it's the biggest one this side of the Mississippi. And he said, I'll do the job on condition I can bring in any program I want. So we had a big program in those days called Discovery, and it basically goes and proves the Torah's true. Right? It goes codes and all these different things, right? And they did it. They gave the program conservative reform temples all over America. I mean, not primarily, but they did it. So the head rabbi found out, and he went ballistic. And he said, "There's no way we're bringing, this group in." So the guy said to me, "I don't know what to do. They won't listen to me. Would you mind speaking to the head rabbi?" I said, "Sure." So I called him up, and right off the bat, he said to me, "Rabbi, the only way I'll let this program be in your shul is if you let me speak in front of the entire congregation." Right? That was his condition. So I said to him, "Rabbi, listen, you're a conservative rabbi. I'm an Orthodox rabbi. Right? I know the things that you can't do. And if I was to set up demands, I could spell them out, and it'd be difficult for you. And you know the things I can't do. Let's get together, right? Have a chat, right? And try and work a way that we can accommodate each other, right? So you can work with me and I can work with you." He said to me, "I'm not interested. This is my demands. Take it or leave it," right? So at the time it was the Oslo calls, right? Bunch of nonsense, silly, waste of time, stupidity, etc., etc., etc. Right? And I know how he thought about it, because they're all bought into this silliness. So I said to him, "Do you think that the Israelis and the Palestinians can make peace?" He says, "For sure." So I said, "The gap between the Israelis and the Palestinians, is that gap bigger than the gap between me and you, or smaller?" He says, "Bigger." Right? There's a bigger gap between the Palestinians and the Israelis than there is between an Orthodox rabbi and a conservative rabbi. Right? That gap is very small. So I said to him, you think the Israelis and the Palestinians can make peace, and you and I can't make peace? Oh, he went ballistic. He said, "That's my final offer. Take it or leave it." I said to him, "You're killing yourself, right? This guy who's on your board, he's going to hear about it, and he's gonna walk out the show." He says, "You can tell him anything you want." I said, "Thank you very much." Put down the phone. Right? Within 3 months, I don't remember, it was 2 months, 3 months, I don't remember the time frame, but 2-3 months, he was davening in a Torah.
Why?
His son got cancer.
Oh.
You get it? Now, you and I both know God hears your tefillahs in his shul, in my shul, in everybody's shul. You don't have to be in shul. I mean, you have a minion, right? You understand? He doesn't need to, you follow? But his understanding of Judaism was somewhat limited. And he thought, if I'm going to speak to God, I've got to do it in his, it's like the old joke about the Orthodox rabbi gets into a cab at the same time as a conservative rabbi. And the conservative rabbi says, "Listen, I hope there's no conservative Jews listening to this." He says, listen, we say share a cab. After all, we both serve God, right? And the Orthodox rabbi says, "Yes, of course, you serve God your way, and I serve God in his." Right? So you see, this rabbi, he knew, right? This is the legitimate way to daven. He understood that. He was feeling his lack of legitimacy. So he wants to get his legitimacy by forcing me to let him speak in front of the congregation. He wasn't interested in working it out or anything. He's just feeling insecure, right? Which is a tragic thing.
But it also meant that he'd be out of a job, because once Discovery comes in, the conservative shul has to become Orthodox to accommodate everybody's interests.
That should have been our only problem if that would have happened. It's not usually that successful. It was never that successful. But for the, but they weren't worried about that, right?
It would be now.
They would be now, probably. So King Yanai says to his wife, don't be worried about the Siddiqim, and don't worry about the people who are not Siddiqim, who are not the Prushim, right? Ela mitzvah, the hypocrites, right? That pretend to be the Siddiqim, that pretend to be the Prushim, the people who follow the Torah Shabbat Peh. You know, no one's pretending to be the conservative rabbi, right? Follow? That's who you should worry about. Don't worry about the Siddiqim. Don't worry, because they're my friends, right? The only people you have to worry about is the people who pretend to be the righteous, because he knew. Right, that's the standard. It's Chabad. That's the standard. It's the Orthodox. That's the standard. So who do you have to worry about? The people who pretend. Now it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Rav Yaakov Weinberg, see, we don't have this problem today. Rav Yaakov Weinberg Etzal, he used to say that, you read Torah enough, you see this concept over again. You should learn Torah Lishma. Learn Torah Lishma. Learn Torah Lishma. And when it's about chuvas, you're reading this and you don't know what it's talking about. You think you know what it's talking about. You don't realize you don't know what it's talking about. Because I'm trying to learn. I don't know. I don't know what Lishma means, right? So you got at one spot, and for me at least, you could cut the atmosphere with a knife. And he said this line, nobody today learns Torah lo Lishma.
Nobody learns lo lishma.
Right.
Oh, because there's no royalty, there's no whatever associated with it.
There's no motive.
There's no gain.
Right. Before the war, the Second World War, he said, before that, people would rather their daughter marry a Talmud Chacham than a rich man. Not today. I mean, in some circles that's true, but it's a very small circles. Right? So there's no gain for pretending to be a Talmud Chacham. I'm a Talmud Chacham. Did I get a free bus ride? No, you don't get any advantage. They don't give you an upgrade on the airlines, right? So people pretend to be. Please God, that should be our problem. Please God, we should overcome it. But nevertheless, right? That's what he says. Who the people pretend to be the righteous, pretend to be the Prushim. And then now he's got a great kicker at the end. Shema'asechem k'maaseh Zimri. They act like Zimri, right? Zimri from Pinchas's, right? Bilam and Parshas Bilam. At the end of the Parsha there, they act like they behave like Zimri, but they seek the reward like Pinchas. Right? So Rabbi Belsky, he has a great story. His father was a Rav who went to Memphis, Tennessee. They opened a day school there. I mean, this was early days, I think in the 50s. There was nothing there. You can imagine how difficult it must have been. It's mind-boggling. And I think Rabbi Belsky was born in Memphis, Tennessee. So he goes to Memphis, and they don't know who he is. And the only thing there's a little Orthodox thing, but there's the majority of Reform, Conservative, whatever, right? So they ask him to speak at a federation thing. They don't know who he is or anything. They didn't make that mistake again. So he gets up and he speaks, and he says this line. He says, nothing's ever changed. You think it's changed, but it's not changed. In the good old days, we used to call them sinners. Today, we just call them Reformed Jews. You see, it's a fascinating thing, right? You see, at the end of Parshas Bilam, so Parshas Balak. So Bilam says, I can't curse the Jewish people, but I can advise you how to destroy them, right? So he says to him, right, the Torah, God took it out of the Torah because it would give our enemies ammunition. So he says to them, get them involved in immorality. That's how you get to Zimri, right? And I'm sure the debate went something like this. Bilam says to Balak, right, get them involved in immorality. And Balak would reply, what do you mean get them involved in immorality? Like what? And he would tell him, he said, what do you mean? We've been doing that for years. I mean, the Catholic Church, right? Is that, right, follow? Is that,
Right.
so why does it involve, why does it destroy the Jews? Because it's not enough that Zimri wants to have this go. But what is he going to do? He's going to do it in the town square in front of everybody. You see, the Catholics, they've got all this junk. They've had this junk for 2,000 years, but they hide it. Right? They hide it. Right? There's a book called The Perversions of the Nazis. Right? A significant number of them, of the leadership at least, was highly perverted. All kind of things, right? J. Edgar Hoover used to wear a dress under his suit, right? It was like nutty on nutty, right? But no one ever knew, right? They hide it, right? The Jews, right? They're going to have a shawl where this is okay. This is not only mutter, but it's a mitzvah. Right? They're going to build a shawl around it, right? You know, they say there's 3 branches of Judaism: Orthodox, Conservative, Reconstructionist, right? There really isn't. Right? Even when, unfortunately, within the Orthodox, each shawl is its own religion. Here they daven too long. Here they shush everybody. Here they only accept this hechsher. Here's Chalav Yisrael. Here's like, every shawl's got a different thing, and you go to the shawl that fits your mitzvah. Whatever, however you want it. That's how you should be done. This is the right way to do it. Right? That's what it's become. Right? Unfortunately. So that's what Bilam advised the king. If the Jews get involved with morality, they won't do it. What they'll do is they'll make the religion around whatever it is they want to do. They can't live a dual life. They have to make it that this is the right thing to do. They want to do it, but they want to make it the right thing. It's absolutely crazy. And then they get mad at everybody who doesn't accept them. All of a sudden, these new things, these new perversions that just come on the scene. And all of a sudden, if you don't accept them, you're Russia. My grandmother didn't accept it. Your grandmother didn't accept it. Right? It's like all of a sudden. So that's the problem. He says, it's like they want to behave like animals, but they want to pretend, they want to get the scar of being Pinchas, of being a big tzaddik. That's the problem with the world. So why is this the worst thing? So you see, where does he say it before? By when you do mitzvahs l'shma. So it's okay. Let's talk about the Shema, and then we'll get on to Sota. So what did he say about the Shema? So he says there's 3 levels in the Shema. There's 2 levels of Lo Lishma, and there's one level of Shema. So he says, do it for the right reasons. So he says there's 2 types of Lo Lishma. Right? The Chazal say that somebody who does a mitzvah Shelo Lishma, right? Better he die in childbirth. How's that?
Okay.
Okay. And then there's another kind of lishma that it's good to learn lishma because you'll come to lishma. It's very hard to do a mitzvah lishma, to do anything lishma, but you should do it. It's better to do it lishma, but if you can't manage it, it's good to do it in lo lishma because you'll come to lishma. Now that's not the other kind of lo lishma, right? For the wrong reason. Excuse me. Right? You understand? There's 2 types of doing it for the wrong reason. One, you should die in childbirth, and one will bring you to lishma. Right? They'll bring you for the wrong reasons. Will bring you to the right reasons. Now we see a lot of people in the world that read the Bible and they never get to for the right reasons. Right? That's the famous question they asked Rabbi Dessler, right? How come all these conservative rabbis, they never get to Lishma? They never get to the right reason. So it's Shalom Lishma, if you do it, there's two types of Lo Lishma. If you do the wrong reasons for the right reason, right, you'll get to the right reason. But if you do it for the wrong reason, it's a terrible thing. Those are the people that better off they died in childbirth. So what is that? What's the wrong reason? He says that's to pretend. You're the wrong reason you're doing it. The only reason you're doing it is you want people to be impressed. It's your job. You get a salary. You're the rabbi, so you want to make it whatever it happens. We once had a guy in Eshet Torah, and he was going to become a conservative rabbi. So, normally speaking, the kids would come in, they were going to be lawyers, doctors, accountants, whatever, right? Businessmen, right? So this guy, he was going to become a conservative rabbi. So now he's going to become an Orthodox rabbi. So his father flew over, we would get this, and kick up a storm. You're going to take my kid out. That's ridiculous. So he said to him, I don't understand. He's going to be a rabbi anyway. There's a certain thing, what difference does it make? He's still not going to drive on Shabbos, right? So there's still restrictions. What do you care? Because you don't understand. Conservative rabbis make a lot of money. They do, right? So he said, so what are you doing it for? For the money. So if you're doing it for that reason, that's a terrible thing. They'll never come to the Shema. Why? Because when you're doing it because God said to do it. Now, doing it because God said to do it is lo lishma, is not the right reasons. But if you're doing it because God said to do it, you're going to make sure, right, your tefillin have the right parshas in it. You're going to be sure that the mezuzah, I've been into buildings, that you can tell there's a Xerox copy of the mezuzah. And sometimes I don't even think there's anything in there. Right? Why? Because they're only putting mezuzahs to make you think that they're putting up a mezuzah. Right? So you see, every mitzvah brings you sher kitshanu. Every mitzvah gives you kedusha. Every mitzvah gives you kedusha. Kedusha is the thrill of life. You haven't read my book, read my book. Talk about it in there. Every mitzvah, kedusha is the thrill of life. Right? So if you do a mitzvah for the right reasons, eventually you'll feel the thrill of life. Do you need a reason to eat chocolate ice cream? Do you need a reason to eat Dunkin' Donuts? You don't need a reason. You need a reason not to eat it. Right? You understand? So if you're getting the thrill of life out of a mitzvah, that's the right reasons. Right? If you do a mitzvah for the right reasons, if you do a mitzvah, sorry, not for the right, if you do a mitzvah because God said so, then you're going to make sure to do it the way God said so. But if you're going to do a mitzvah because you want to impress everybody, you're not going to make sure that it gets you anywhere, right? So therefore what? You're going to do the mitzvah and then you're going to hate doing it. And everyone's going to see you doing it and they go, this is what it looks like to do a mitzvah? I remember one rabbi, oh my goodness, he stood up in shul and he said this line, and I've heard this line, when I was a kid, I heard this line. I heard this line from Reform rabbis, and I can't believe this guy said. So he said, you should go to shul so your kids see you go to shul. That's why you should go to shul. Right? If you want your kids to go to shul, then go to shul. Right? And they'll see you go to shul and they'll pretend to be, they'll follow in your footsteps. Right? Therefore you should go to shul. And the most stupid thing on the planet. I mean, if that were true, right, there'll be millions of Jews, because at one point every Jew went to shul. So obviously it didn't work. At some point they said, no, I'm not going anymore. Why? Because their father went to shul, or their mother went to shul, right? Because they thought if they go to shul, the kids will go to shul. Right? And I remember that message coming across in the Reform shuls. They couldn't get people to come. I remember the message on the high holidays in the Reform shuls, and the Reform one we went to, right? And the shul was all over the places. How come we only see you on the high holidays? And the high holidays, right, the place is packed. Every Shabbos, no one's here. right? How come, right? So he would say, like, do you want your kids to be involved in gym? Everyone would feel guilty, and most people wouldn't do it, right? Because you can't do it if you don't enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it and you do it, you're teaching your children not to do it. Why do I want to be miserable? You say your kids know what you really love. So
is that why the off the derech situation occurs?
What's that?
Is that why off the derech occurs? That
Yes,
the kids
100%. 100%.
So they're really not on the derech. It's a lie. They're not really on the derech because their parents don't really enjoy it, or they're picking up something that's not sincere.
It's quite the opposite. The kids are on the derech.
Oh, and the parents are not.
Their parents are not on the derech, 100%. The kids are on the derech. You can't get off the derech, right? The kids are much more on the derech. You're going at a very slow pace, but the kids are on the derech. They're saying, I want meaning in life. I know there's more to life than this. Don't tell me that you go to shul and you come home like bored out your brain cells. Don't tell me this is when you're watching a football match, right? And you don't fall asleep, and the rabbi's drush, and you do fall asleep, right?
So they're saying there's a lack of emotion where there should be.
It doesn't mean anything to you, right? It's not a thrill. If you're doing a mitzvah properly, so why are you doing it? Why are you going to the because you've got to go? You're supposed to do. No, you're supposed to go to a shir that you want to go to a shir. To go to a shir that you really want to go to, or go to a shul that you really want to. Find that shul.
Are you saying that kids these days like instinctively have this desire for meaning and they're not seeing it?
For sure. That's the whole point. 100%. No kid, you don't have to kill a kid, right, to eat more chocolate.
That's true.
Right. You don't eat enough jelly beans. Right? There's no such thing. So if you enjoyed the mitzvah, right, what do the kids see? Oh, look at that car. Oh, that's a Bentley. Oh my goodness, look at that. Right? Oh, here's your tefillin. They see, right? Oh, so maybe a Bentley. So they go chasing a Bentley, right? Or they go watch a movie because the new Spielberg movie is out tonight. I've got to watch it. Oh, that's exciting, right? Oh, there's a new shir on from the Rav. Really? Oh, okay. Well, I'll download it and if I have some time on the way to shul. So they know what you really care about. But you can't fake it, right? They know what it's overtly, it's overt what is important to you, what you really enjoy in life. You can't fake it. So if you do the mitzvah properly, if you do the mitzvah because God said to do it, then you're going to do it properly. And it's not possible to do a mitzvah properly and not come to enjoy it. In other words, if you're doing something and you're not enjoying it, there's something wrong. Like about Shuvas, one of the biggest questions we would get is I'm keeping Shabbos and I'm not enjoying it. Now, it wouldn't happen very often, but it would happen. In other words, no one can keep Shabbos if they're not enjoying it. You just can't. In the good old days, before the Second World War, you did have that. I remember that. You had remnants of people who were doing it. They kept Shabbos. They didn't like it. They were just doing it because that's what you did, right? But there was a burden for them. But you did it. That's what you did. Like the same way you kept kosher, or you keep kosher in the house. Why do you keep kosher in the house? Because that's what we did. Do you like it? No, it's a pain. Because when I eat Chinese, I've got to go eat in the car. Right? They're not enjoying it. They don't get anything out of it, right? So so if you're doing it right, you'll get a thrill. So if you're not getting a thrill, then you got to ask the question: what am I doing wrong? Right? If you're doing it right, you'll come to a thrill. So the people who are doing it because they just want to impress me, those are the worst people, because that's what makes kids go off the derech. That's what makes everybody go off the derech. That's why people are so threatened by Orthodox Judaism, because what they think you're saying to them is, you're going to do a mitzvah even though you hate it. And they say the Israelis are going bananas. because they think they're gonna the form are gonna come and tell them, you've got to fast 3 days on Yom Kippur, right? You're gonna have to whip yourself and fast every, all kinds of crazy stuff. They think that's what Judaism is going to tell them to do, and they don't get any meaning out of it, right? So because that was their experience. No one, if you really are having that's the famous story of Onkelos, right? His uncle, the Caesar, he sends a troop of Roman soldiers, and every time they keep converting. So finally, he says to the last troop, he says to them, don't speak to him, just pick him up and bring him in, right? So fine, so they go pick him up. As he's walking out the door, he kisses the mezuzah, and they all convert. Now, listen, it's not my biggest thing I do, but, I'm not very much bid on it. I do it, but I never kissed them as someone go, oh, you know what, I'm going to be Jewish. It never happened to me. And I never heard anyone it happened to. So how did he kiss them? Was it slowly, right? Which finger did he use? No. Right? If you ogle over a mezuzah, like people ogle over a Ferrari, right? Then the truth is we have a bit of this, right? If you Jewish ceremonial items, haggadahs and all kinds of antiques, fetch for a lot of money because people find them precious. Your candlesticks, right? All you need for candlesticks is 2 blocks of wood. A little thing in it is you don't need like these expensive candlesticks. Why? Because it has you understand? It's precious to you. So your kids know that. So they'll have candlesticks too. Why do you have candlesticks? Because your mother, it was precious to her, candlesticks. So you see, right, when you have something endearing, your kids won't leave it. Right? Davening is
you're basically saying that if you're not approaching every mitzvah in your life with understanding what it means and the depth of its meaning, then you're not really getting through to your kids because you haven't gotten through yourself. You haven't gotten through to yourself.
Well, I don't like the word understanding, experiencing it.
Well, can you really experience like a mezuzah without understanding what it's there for and why we put it there and like what it means?
Yeah, you have that with candlesticks.
No, but like I'm saying, like, if you just put a mezuzah without understanding what it says, why we do it, what its significance is, can you really feel anything?
Yeah.
I
think that's why people, even secular, so-called secular Jews put mezuzahs up, because they do feel something. They remember something. There is something in our history. They knew people, their grandparents, or whatever it was. It had a real meaning to them. But mezuzahs, is one of the things. Do you have to understand everything about it? No, but you have to do what it says about it. You have to take it seriously. Your wife says, this is what you do with the mezuzah. This is how all the details of it. You take it seriously. It's not possible to take it seriously and not get an experience from it and not connect with it. In the same way, you take your kids for the first time to Dunkin' Dines, Häagen-Dazs, right? To get, I don't want to say Ben and Jerry's anymore, right? You say Häagen-Dazs, right? And they never had I remember one of my kids didn't want to try a donut, never had a donut before. And they look at this thing, for some reason, donuts look weird. So he didn't want to try it. Right? I said, no, really, I promise you, try it. You're going to like it. Wouldn't eat it. I had to bribe them to try it. And after they tried it, right? So you get a tub of ice cream, and you go, you'll try the ice cream. And they don't want to try it. So they come out, did you try the ice cream? Yeah. How was it? Really? Let me see. So what are they doing? They're smearing on their face. They think it's cream. Right? No, you have to eat the ice cream. If you do it the wrong way, you won't get the experience. That's the same thing with all the mitzvahs. If you do it the way God says to do it, that's lo lishma. That's for the wrong reason. You'll come to lishma. But the other people are doing it because they just want to impress people for whatever reason, right? They're not doing it the right way. And so they hate doing it. And people therefore get turned off. That's the pits. That's the worst thing. And that's the same thing here by the humble people. They're pretending, right? They're pretending to be honest and sincere and do it and care and all these kind of other things, right? This is the occupational hazard of a rabbi, right? It's a big problem amongst rabbis, right? Because we get paid to be nice. It's easy for me to be nice. It's my job definition, right? I don't get a bonus at the end of the year if I'm not nice. That's a joke.
I imagine it would be hard if you're trying to make changes and
what?
I said I imagine it would be hard to be nice all the time if what you're trying to do is make changes and you know, get people to do something different.
There's a Gemara that says any rabbi who doesn't have enemies is not worth his salt. No, there's no rabbi. Right? Yes, you're right. But nevertheless, I get paid to be nice. Right? It's hard, and therefore, people, you know, they do it because that's their job. So when you do it because it's your job, you're not doing it you're doing it lo lishma, right? You're doing it for the wrong reasons. That is not the ones that doesn't lead to the right reasons. Right? It's not good. So now, let's get back to Sota. So why is it in the Parsha of Sota? So Rav Yaakov Weinberg is a fascinating thing. There are only 2 mitzvahs in the entire Torah, but you need a nace for a miracle to perform. This Sota, right? Right? She drinks the water, and if she's guilty, she blows up. And what's the other one?
The other one has a miracle associated with it.
Don't answer all at once. Take a number. Go alphabetical. Oldest to youngest.
Come on, give us a hint. Oh, Shemitah. Shemitah is a miracle.
Oh, that's a very good answer, but it's not the right answer. Shemitah is not, you don't have to have a miracle to perform it. So it's a miracle if you ask. You don't have to, if you don't get a miracle, you still do the mitzvah. But that's a good answer.
All right, so what else is this something that only occurred during Beit HaMikdash times?
It doesn't occur now, right?
Right, so Sota is like that too.
Sota is like that too, right?
The burning, the fire that burns continuously.
Yeah, but right, that's not a mitzvah you need to have happen. Even if it didn't, you'd still. Good try.
So I guess Lechem Panim is also not.
Oh yeah, it didn't spoil.
No.
That's also not.
No. Well, it's much more. There's lots of parshas. There's a big parsha. There's a few parshas in the Torah about it.
Manna.
Manna? Well, it's not a mitzvah. You don't have to have manna.
A mitzvah, I think mitzvah.
No, give up.
Yes.
To us.
Ah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't figure out how to give you a clue. To us, right? So then you get this disease for speaking Lashon Hara. So he says, well, why do you? It tells you how difficult it is to not speak Lashon Hara. You don't have a mitzvah you don't have a miracle like that because I have a problem not eating shrimp. Okay, so don't eat shrimp. I can't help myself. Tough. Figure out how to help yourself. right? So the Sora, right, and the Sota, right? So this woman is suspected of doing something not proper, and so there's a miracle happens to prove that she's guilty, right? Well, the next door neighbor is a serial axe murderer. Well, we don't know. We haven't got the evidence. There's no taking to the base of Mikdash and have him whatever. They know he's an avodah zarah in secret. Right? There's no test. Right? How come for this one, right? For this one, there is such a thing.
Because relationships, again, that's like, it's the crux of any society is the strength of the relationships. And the most important relationship is the one between husband and wife. That's
true. But why is it in this issue, right? We don't have by any other aspect of their relationship. On this issue, it's very interesting. The Gemara says that when it became prevalent that women were blowing up, the rabbis banned the process. It's very similar when people were being convicted of murder, they stopped the death penalty. Very similar reasoning. Why did they stop the death penalty? Because the point is not to catch murderers. You see, the death sentence doesn't do anything. You kill. It's
not a deterrent, you're saying.
What?
You're saying it's not a deterrent.
It's not just not a deterrent, but you're not solving the problem. There's something wrong with society. Right? I remember I was in Israel when they had their first ever kidnapping. Right, first ever. They went for I don't know how long, 40 years. I don't remember what year it was in the 80s, and they never had a kidnapping. But it was like a war had broken out. You get on a bus and the news would come on, and they have them in the buses. They have the news play, and when the news would come on, the whole bus would go silent. And a big bus, that's no small thing, right? And it was the front story for weeks. Until they finally caught the kid, and they caught the kidnapper, right? Within a few weeks, I think it was a few weeks or a few months, they had another one, right? So how can you go for decades without kidnapping? Then all of a sudden, because there's something wrong with society, right? Whatever you do to this kidnapper is not going to resolve that, right? There's something percolating in society that he's the head, he's the first one, and there's another. Right? He didn't just, right, like they say about gun control. The problem with gun control is the guy who's going to do the next mass shooting has already got the gun. It's not going to stop anything for quite some time. Right? It's going to take a long time. Even if you could get rid of all the guns, it's not going to solve anything for a very long time. Right? So there's something wrong with society. We have this problem. So with Sota, what's the problem? So why do we have a Sota? So you see, the point of the mitzvah is not to catch a woman who's guilty. It's to prove that she's innocent.
Innocent, right. So that the relationship is maintained.
Right. If you kill her, what kind of relationship are they going to have now? Not much, right? You understand? So the whole point is to find that she's innocent. That's the whole point of the mitzvah. The Chazal understood the point of the mitzvah. So if we're finding all these guilty women, we got a problem, right? That's not the point. But why do we have a mitzvah on this doubt? There's another mitzvah when it's murder. We don't have a mitzvah on any other abnormality in society, right? But on this one, we have it because doubt is the issue.
He doesn't know. Can he trust her, or can he trust her? Or can he not trust her?
Can he not trust her? We said that's the whole problem. It's dishonest weights of an abomination. Right? It's a to'eva. Right? One of the worst descriptions, the worst appellation you can say about anything is a to'eva. It's like the worst thing to describe it. Homosexuality, right? It's the worst thing, right? Men dressing up as women, women dressing up as men. It's the worst thing because you don't know what you got. You pretend to be something else. You got weights that are not, it says it's a pound, but it's not really a pound. In other words, to trick somebody, to steal from someone, not trick, to steal, okay, that's a terrible thing. But okay, he said, but to pretend that it's something other, to pretend everything's kosher in the relationship, right, when there's really something going on, that undermines everything. That's the worst thing. Therefore, God said, for this, I'm going to stop this, right? Because that's the destroys society, when people pretend to be something they're not. It's worse. In other words, you want the reform. You want, in the good old days, before reform, before conservative, you didn't keep Shabbos. They didn't keep Shabbos. What did they used to do? Like in England, they're much more conservative in not the capital C, but they're more of a traditional. So people belong to Orthodox shores, even though they weren't keeping Shabbos. What would they do? They'd drive down the corner and park the car. So the conservative guy said, you don't have to drive in the corner. We'll make a big parking lot. Right? You understand? So what was the problem? They said that wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't with the driving around the corner. The problem is you drive to shul and you say it's okay to drive to shul. That's the killer. You know, as long as you know you shouldn't really drive to shul, we're good. That's a healthy attitude. That's healthy to do. You know, you do, when we all do things, I'll speak for myself. I do things you shouldn't do, right? But it's not good to think that it's okay to do. What's very healthy is whatever you do, you shouldn't do. To acknowledge, I shouldn't do this. Right? If you don't have things in your life that you shouldn't do, you're a nutcase. Right? You're on medication. You're on too much medication. Right? We all got things that we shouldn't do. So if you think, right, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who go, I'm perfect. Right? That's how they walk around. Right? And they pay off. They, you know, why do Reform and conservative rabbis get paid so much? Because you have to pay a Jew a lot of money to tell people something that isn't true.
Mm.
Right? I just saw the statistic. The 70% of Jews in America are intermarried. 70%. Right? How did we get there? Because Reform rabbis lied to their congregations. Reform and conservative. They stood up there and they said, send your kids to the Jewish, you know, to our Hebrew schools and everything, and join our shul. And they knew full well that the kids, when they left, married out. And these people joined thinking that they were saving their kids and connecting their kids. And they knew the rabbis knew what was happening. But they kept telling them, no, we're the solution. Right? And vast communities, my community in England is gone. There's nothing left of it. It's a few, there's nothing. All the shores are closed up. There's hardly anything there. And it was one of the biggest communities in all of Europe in terms of number of Jews. But they were all Reform conservatives, you know, with varying degrees. And the kids didn't want anything to do with it. They moved out, and it just it was a sham. So that's the worst. When you have a Reform shul and you pretend that this is the way to follow God, this is the way Judaism says to be. That's the worst. That killed everybody. At least the parents, the previous generation, when they belonged to Orthodox shuls and they drove, they knew what was the real Judaism. They had a connection. So some of them joined, some of them got more serious, but they knew what was real.
You know, all this pretending, it almost seems like treason against the king, like treason against God.
That is 100%. You're right. It's not good.
So this is the reason. The reason is that it basically destroys the fabric of society.
This is the pig. Why is the pig so bad? Because it pretends that it's kosher. It puts out its hooves. Right? That's the Western world. Esav is the pig. Right? They pretend that they're kosher. oh, we're righteous, we're good, we're wonderful people, blah, 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 right? Is then behind the scenes, they're animals. That's what's so bad.
So am I remembering my Lashon Hara laws correctly? If someone is a pretender, you're required to point it out, right?
Oh, you're gonna have to ask a Posek on that one. Sorry. That's not my specialty. Sorry. There are places, I'm not sure that, I don't want to say. Yeah, but there are places where you have to point out where people are
like the Tzadukis, right? Yeah. Like them, for example, because they're pretenders, and you're trying to protect people from their negative influence. So you're allowed to say what's true but negative about them.
Yeah, there are places, right? 100%. But I'm not gonna. I can't delve into that, into those waters. It's not my.
Okay. Fair enough.
Sorry. Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Have a good night.
Good night. Good night. Good night.